let's get started, and I'm going to turn it over to Nate to kick us off.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And me and Ryan have been thinking about this and dreaming up some things here. It's amazing how much this space is changing in terms of our abilities here to show the value of this incredible work that we're doing. I love talking about CX work as the ability to make people's lives better and easier, which is hard to translate into business results sometimes. And we had some terrifying things come out from a couple of the big analyst firms earlier this year, talking about how a lot of CX programs were being defunded because of that inability to show the strategic value of the work. So it's a bit of a wake up call for all of us that the traditional metrics of old may not be working as well as they once did. You know, the origins of this work come out of traditional surveys, traditional voice of customer, but we're long past with the new tools and capabilities and the new mentality around the work. We're way outside that realm now, and it's time for our metrics to catch up. Ryan, what are you thinking about as we tee this up here?
This group is one of the most customer-centric groups that I've ever engaged with professionally. I've been doing this 28 years now, and customer has always been first and foremost. And I think having an engaged group like this and talk about modern metrics, the timing couldn't be better. So take it from there, Nate.
Love it. And we threw together a few slides, but we're not going to slide you to death, I promise. Please speak up. Woo.
And Nate, do you want me to launch the first poll question?
Oh, yeah, that'd be excellent. Thank you so much. Already forgot about our poll. Thank you. Yeah, so we want to ask this. What is the most generally effective metric that you are using or that you believe is there to capture CX value? CX value, in your opinion? We've got a few options here: Net Promoter Score, NPS 3.0, which is a newer version of NPS. We have customer health, customer engagement score, customer satisfaction, customer lifetime value, or other. And we'd sure love if you would put other in the chat, because that'll really help to accelerate this conversation to know what you think best correlates to CX value. Oh,
I know Adam's going to change his vote right now. Adam's going right back to change his vote. So, hey, Nate, while they're doing that, could you, you and or Ryan give us your best one, no more than 2 sentence definition of CX?
Yeah, I mean, I do love the Forrester definition of it's the culmination of the perceptions and feelings that someone has towards a brand. I like that one.
Good one.
Okay, we have 70%. Oh, sorry. You go, Ryan.
No, customer experience. When I think of customer experience, I think of this is how brands differentiate themselves through their culture, through their employees, through their products. And it all comes out in the wash, you could say. But I always say it's whether it's the smile of a customer in a retail business or the smile that you hear through a phone call or in that simplicity of the chat experience. That's really the differentiator from a brand awareness standpoint is where when I think about customer experience, that's what I'm thinking about.
David, now you got us curious. What would you say?
Well, I kind of yield on what members say, and I'm seeing them evolve from it's really just customer service to, well, I guess customer service is under the umbrella of customer experience. But I'm really kind of curious, if not confused, about where the agent or the employee experience fits when we keep talking about customer experience. Seems like there's something that's overarching that includes them both.
I see, so David, that you're customer curious, as am I. And so MSU is a wake-up call for me. Michigan State University, they did a big powwow. They've got a graduate program set up, and they invited members of the community to come in. One of the most advanced CX audiences that I've been a part of, but it was troubling. It was convicting in terms of that legacy view of the CX role that we've kind of had in our head for a long time, and it not adding organizational value at the velocity that it needs to in order to retain its strategic position in the organization. So then the conversation, of course, is like, what's going on? Where is this going? And several of those folks were talking about this customer-centric utopia role, which was combining the newer element of customer success, which is a really customer-centric way of doing sales and marketing. It's maximizing customer value right? So that's kind of that upper end of the funnel in terms of the awareness stage of the customer. Then you get into that more operations role, that customer experience leader who's protecting the expectations that were set, the brand promise that was set earlier in the journey, and making sure that you're delivering on that promise. So that includes your customer service department, that includes your delivery vehicle around implementation and other things. So it's really kind of that combined role that a lot of people were talking about, and we don't really have maybe the word for that yet, but I think the closest thing is that idea of like a chief customer officer type of role. But would sure love for others to pipe up on that. I mean, what are you thinking is going on there in the near future?
I'll chime in, and I think what we're seeing here is the synergy between a sales department, a customer success department, and a service delivery model. And
Mm,
it's really that customer experience is really the glue that puts them together in both the experience delivery, but also in the data and the analytics that are now evolving in the modern metrics. Whether you're still doing NPS and CSAT or you're doing revenue in a post-interaction basis, there's a lot of evolution that's happening very quickly in this space. But
mm.
love to hear from some members on some perspectives.
Thank you, Lauren Wood. Hooray for CSAT. 6-point scale is my favorite. That's a good scale. I was actually shocked coming into the gaming industry 3 years ago. Got put day 2 of my tenure at a small startup organization called Officium. I was on site at Warner Brothers Games and just basically told like, oh, figure out how to add value here. And I'm thinking, oh, super modern organization, they must do metrics completely differently. The
Right.
gaming industry loves CSAT. It's the
Yeah.
North Star for them. So
Using
actually,
an even number of scores makes the customer fall on one side or the other. All right.
yeah,
And it's easy to explain to the agent. NPS confuses them.
it does. It does. There's the effortless experience came along in 2011 and kind of really poo-pooed CSAT. And for reasons, they had a huge data set there, right? But they were basically saying NPS and CSAT, when we look at a customer service interaction, does not correlate to loyalty, which is what business outcomes, right? And I kind of have wrestled with that these past few years, and for a little while there, I was like, let's throw CSAT out. It's not valuable anymore. I don't think that anymore. I think there's still a place and a time where CSAT really makes sense based on the type of interaction you have with your customer.
Do we have poll results?
We do, and it would look like many agree. So CSAT is the leading score on the poll, followed by, surprisingly, Net Promoter Score. What are you seeing here, Ryan?
Yeah, that's about what I would expect here at this point. Just seeing where the industry is from a CX basis.
Yeah.
You think about, how do you create a culture of customer centricity? It's creating some baseline metrics. It's creating the culture around your brand. It's creating individual accountability. It's about
Yeah.
creating culture. That's what those types of metrics create. They're culture driving.
Mm. Mm.
And that's been historically, particularly in contact center space, how folks have evaluated themselves.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
good.
I'm going to jump in and ask Kelly because she just took a sip of something. You've been around this industry as long as anyone on our call today. Do you see CX as just another label on the stuff we've been doing all along, or how do you see it?
Well, I'm a fan of I think there's a place for the CSAT and the NPS, but I think there's also a need for CX leaders to be able to tie to some type of ROI, but it's really hard. But that ROI could be in the employee experience and making it easier for the employee to deliver the value or the brand promise that you're looking at, or it could be driven through the loyalty of seeing additional revenue. But I think there's got to be a metric that maybe is a combination of the ones that were in the poll that ultimately you can help the organization see what the value is. And I found that the biggest thing that helped us was to look at how do I help the employee deliver that brand promise that I expected of them to drive the loyalty. And Nate, I think you mentioned that. I just think this UX is just a really important when we're thinking of CX in the long run.
It's so true. These things, CX is so big. It's really too big. And I think that's part of our issue. It's so hard to collect focus and be able to execute on something that you can really attribute success to. So I think in kind of to steal me and Ryan's own thunder here, it's why we're seeing the rise in popularity of these composite metrics that bring different elements of the larger customer journey together and combine them into a larger engagement type of metric. And we're seeing more and more of these. That's what NPS 3.0 is. So there's a lot of folks who in the chat we even have, hey, NPS lost its relevance. And I feel like I know exactly when that happened. And David probably remembers this too. People got so crazy addicted to NPS in like the late 2010 era there, that companies, as soon as you answered the question, they would pop up. So it would ask you the question, would you refer our brand to a friend or family member, blah, blah, blah. If you would put a 9 or 10, it would then give you a pop-up box asking you to then put a social review in. And people got so burned out on that. It's kind of a bait and switch scenario. And the question itself stopped making as much sense to this modern era of customers. So NPS itself, though, if you look at the whole system beyond the score, there's a lot of intelligence there. There's a lot of helpful stuff there. So even they have started to develop a more journey-focused composite metric that they call NPS 3.0. What are you thinking about that, Ryan?
I go back to the employee experience and the culture. You think about NPS and CSAT. That's foundational.
Yeah.
And I think about this as an evolution for an organization over time, refining those metrics as they get better and better at that. They'll probably drop NPS and CSAT as they evolve into some of the new modern metrics that are there, so that it's really the ROI of a CX leader. Really, it comes down to a number of what are you bringing back to the company from a return on investment? How are you driving revenue? And what are those synergies you're creating with customer success and the sales team?
Yeah. Gosh.
Hey, let me ask Ryan, because you've got firsthand experience recently on this. In your opinion, how is that being received by the C-level?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll share with you. I brought up NPS in an organization I'm working with right now, and I was ran out of the C-suite because I talked about it.
Wow.
He's like, I want to talk about that. That's not where we're going. But I'll share with you an anecdote from Tuesday. I do business sales, and I was out to one of the largest casinos in the East Coast, and I was out with a customer, and I said, so, hey, I didn't see your buffets open. What's going on? Why isn't your buffet open? You guys have always done a great business. Well, Ryan, they don't really create revenue for us anymore. Our customers who come to our casino, the highest performing customers, they don't use the buffet.
Really?
Where they just made this cold drop to stop this thing. It's been part of the casino culture forever. They're like, we're out of the buffet business. Those customers, we're not interested in them anymore. And so for them, the metric around revenue per customer, how are they creating value for their organization? They use that as perhaps a detractor in their NPS and their own sort of psychology around customer experience to help them focus on customers who are creating revenue for their organization through the experiences they deliver.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
The
tough
things
stuff.
we learn on town hall, that's tough. Boy, that brings a tear to my eye, Ryan.
I'm sorry.
I know, right?
You're going to be disappointed with no crab legs at the buffet anymore.
It's the only thing I would go there for. I just pulled up Kelly's comment made me remember a post by Bill Stakos from a week ago. And if you're not following Bill, you have to. I personally have learned more from him this year than anybody else in the space, I would say. And so this is another example of a proposed composite metric. So I'm a fan of these traditional CX metrics. However, it's not quite showing the value. So what do? How do we show this entire scope of CX and the value being generated? And so there's this interesting term, he uses customer experience spectrum, and it's got your emotional intelligence index, your interactive response quotient, your brand advocacy level, like all these things. And of course, customer journey and the idea of that, but like there's so much that can go into the value that's being generated through customer experience effort. And these traditional metrics capture this little fragment of it. That's the best we could hope for, right? So there is no end all be all metric here at all. I think that's the first big point that Ryan and I wanted to make. There is no like magical metric that's going to do it. The closest that we come are these cheater metrics that roll all these different things into one. And it's really not one at that point. It's a composite metric. But so what we do then, we're trying to reveal more and more truth and more value and connect the employees to the customers in meaningful ways as much as we can. That's what a good voice of customer mechanism does for you. And our metrics is a part of that voice of customer strategy. And anything to add there, Ryan?
I would add that there. I've been doing some work for a consulting firm in Canada where they use a lot of Bill Stoika's work, and they actually attach a dollar figure in revenue to each of those metrics.
Wow, that's advanced.
And so it's not just the score, but there's a dollar figure in terms of the value they're creating for the organization of all those disciplines. Just some operationalizing of that.
Yeah, great comment from Dan. Hey, Dan, great to see you again. I got to hang with him a little bit at ICMI. Great to see your face here. Customer satisfaction seems like a low bar, though. Shouldn't CX professionals be held to a higher standard? Help us understand that, Dan.
Yeah, I get net promoter might be too far. Maybe customers aren't comfortable actually going out there and singing the praise of the organization, but for a customer to simply be satisfied, be like, meh, it's good enough. Like I wasn't expecting a whole lot coming into my local McDonald's or my local Walmart, right? I'm just satisfied is enough.
Yeah.
And when we translate that into our own organizations, I get nervous that maybe again we've set that bar too low, that they've come in and they're like, I booked my cruise. It was a good enough experience. And I wonder, is there not a metric in between? Something other than satisfaction, but not yet to the level of singing our praises online? Isn't there something more that we could be held to? Because satisfaction, again, just seems like almost too easy. It seems like we did just barely enough.
That's table stakes, right? That's table stakes.
Right.
It's that wow experience, right?
Yeah, I know Chef Hyken uses the word fine as the F word of customer experience.
Yes.
Like I feel like, Dan, I mean, to me, I agree full-heartedly. And I've been using customer sentiment more and more to fill in that gap for a few reasons. How easy it is to collect at all areas across the journey. And just that wonderful idea of how do you feel about almost anything? How did you feel about this interaction? How did you feel about this product? How do you feel today? How do you feel about our brand? And it's just so wonderful to really see and compare oneself to oneself at various parts of the journey. What do you think about that, Dan? Is that one that you've considered?
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I think it's closer because again, it's a more comprehensive and holistic metric.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about it from an emotional or kind of almost a visceral response, right? Satisfaction being so low, singing our praises being so high. And that I think you're spot on in saying that there's a better, right, NPS 3.0. I've never heard of it until today. It sounds fascinating, makes sense, see the value as you're talking about sentiment along the journey. I think that makes sense. But I guess for me, I'm looking for something simple, something that you could take to the C-suite that they don't get customer satisfaction. They're like, we're not going for satisfaction. We're not going for NPS. We're going for, and that's what I'm curious about. I just don't know what that metric is.
Yeah.
And maybe there's not one. Maybe I'm overcomplicating things again.
No, these are the things we need to be wrestling through, right? And I think, the question that I'm usually asking myself is what best represents loyalty? Like, how can we foster, improve a movement towards loyalty and ambassadorship in this part of the journey? and trying to find the right thing that would reflect that outcome that we're trying to achieve. And it's going to look different depending on what we're trying to do for the customer at that part of their journey.
Yeah, Nate, it's Adam. How's everybody doing? You guys know I would not, be silent through this conversation. So the Net Promoter Score, you had mentioned the customer effort score initially as a, thing that came out big in the 2011 timeframe, but you don't see that as a valuable score for, it's all around customer loyalty.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, here's an example of like something I was trying to do inside of UL when I worked there and was running a voice of customer program inside of a division of UL. Like I was thinking through, here's the part of the journey, and this is a little bit inner centric lens. I get that now. I would have done this a little differently if I could go back. But in the sales part of the customer journey, what is a reflection of loyalty, the outcome we're trying to generate? And ease of business was huge there. and definitely in the implementation part. It was like, how can we get to meaningful value the fastest so that we can deliver on our promise? Because we set an expectation as a software product that we would be delivering value in a certain amount of time. How can we get to that finish line quickly? But then in support, in my opinion, there was nothing better for us than customer effort score. And our corporate Lean Six Sigma office did a huge data initiative that ultimately validated that very thing, that the idea of ease of business and customer effort score meant more to overall loyalty than NPS or any other metric for us. Are others using customer effort score right now? Why or why not?
Yeah, and one of the things that I think Amaya had put in there is that, the C-suite is interested in the connection to the dollar, right? They want to know, how's this drive the bottom line? And that one for me was the easiest way to describe it to C-suite executives. And they quickly saw connections and understood it as far as customer loyalty, and the lifetime value metrics. So I think, for me, it was a really good way to create conversation with the C-suite and have them understand how this really helps.
I've seen a couple comments about customer feedback in this whole process, and I think that's a really important call out. Yeah, and this is a great slide for us to talk about, because I think a lot of people think about being customer centric and having customer focused values, but you also have to think about customer elasticity in terms of how sensitive are they to gaps in customer service, gaps in connection with an employee, gaps in perceived value with your organization. And I think it depends on your organization's brand, the culture, the product that you're selling, or the service that you're selling. It's really going to tell you how sensitive to the customers are to that customer effort score. I hope that makes sense, but that's sort of how I think about operationalize that, the elasticity or sensitivity to the customer gaps that could happen in your interaction.
So a couple that me and Ryan premeditated, we're going to, on these two on the right, I want to just quickly offer up is maybe one that you hadn't considered, but one that I think you might see more and more. The first is a customer health score, customer engagement score. So there is something happening in this customer success movement that's taking the world by storm. So it started in the SaaS space, but now it is quickly gravitating more into general industry. And it's this idea, this principle of maximizing customer value at every stage of the journey. So it really started in sales and marketing, but it's quickly apprehending other parts of customer journey management into this vehicle, this lens of maximizing customer value. And so what it really does is you're looking at, what does engagement look like at this part of the customer journey? And how do we know? Is it the use of certain product features? Is it the attendance at certain events online or in person? Is it referenceability? There's all these different factors that ultimately represent the health and the engagement of a customer. So it's a very intimate approach because you're doing this customer by customer, but you can see the quote unquote health of all your customers on this product suite, or all your customers in the Midwest region. So when you look at it through that lens, there's some incredibly powerful things that you can discover through that process. And this is something that I did inside of UL as an example on one particular product, and found it to be incredibly revealing in terms of where the friction points really were, and just illuminating the reality of what was really going on with that product. We couldn't hide behind anything at that point because of the truth that it provided. But then almost on the complete other end of the spectrum, but completely as valuable, is this idea of a customer growth engine score. So Gene Bliss, required reading for all of us, right? Chief Customer Officer 2.0. But I've used this metric to create urgency in the business around CX. It's one of our biggest things that we struggle with sometimes, right? I mean, that first step in the John Coder change management model is to light the fire and get some urgency going. Well, if you know that, right, like in a moment of time in your business that you've got customers leaving you, and whether it's a reflection of the volume or the value, like the share of wallet representation of your customers, if that's diminishing, that should be a huge wake-up call for the business. But a lot of times that goes completely unnoticed. It's wild because we hide behind these other scores, these percentage hypothetical metrics and other things. So this is the perfect fish on the dish metric that just shows like Q1 2023, here's the volume and value of our total customers. And then ask the great question, have we earned the right to grow our customer base, yes or no? I love using this as a mic drop metric. Has anybody else used a metric in that way to gain urgency in the business, or maybe even use this one? Okay, that's fine.
I'll
jump in there. We haven't used this metric yet, but we're working towards it, actively right now. I do think there's tremendous value here. It's one of the things thinking about is the weighting of steps in the journey as it relates to a score, right? Like what's more valuable than another step, and that's something we're thinking deeply on right now.
Love it. Thank you, Ryan.
You know, Nate, I think so much effort and thought goes into creating programs to gather numbers and data and to measure it and to trend it and all that. But I think where most companies lack any maturity is in what are you doing with your data? What's your process, and how is that impacting your relationship with your customers? Are you listening? Because we can gather all the data we want to, but I'd say 90% of the companies out there don't do anything with it. No. And that just ticks your customers off when they take time to provide feedback and you don't even respond, don't even acknowledge it, don't do anything with it. So I think where our effort really needs to focus on is creating the processes behind the scenes. And we've got plenty of data. We're just not doing anything with it.
Dang, David.
You can tell I'm a little passionate about that.
Conviction reigns from Mr. Reed over here. I could not agree more. I mean, anybody else kind of feeling that same sentiment?
I'd like to throw in a best practice or just an idea that you might consider. We took over the agent wallpapers. It was really easy to do. You could just publish something right on the server, and it would just push wallpaper out to all the agent desktops. So we started putting customer comments.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
All right. And naming agents. All right. And it would change every day. We'd have the agent of the day, the survey comments of the day. We'd post which team had the highest survey score, which agent had the highest survey score of the week. And we just made created a buzz about it. And I remember walking into the employee break room one day and hearing the agents argue over who had the highest CSAT score. All right. Made my day.
Maybe a red flag, but all right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I've been using the term more and more. How do we make voice of customer come to life?
Yeah.
Because the collection of the data is 1/4 of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
3/4 of the puzzle is the use and the life-changing results that we should garner, the urgency that we can gain from the data being collected. And it's crazy to me. And I think this is kind of a legacy artifact of the work, right? I mean, where did CX get born from? Traditional surveys. And it ended in a report that was put on an executive's desk, and that was the end. It is completely different now, but sometimes we still end up in that old mentality.
Well, Nate, the numerical data that we gather from questions and scores is, in my opinion, 50% of what you ought to be looking at in feedback programs. It's the comments and the open-ended. Oh, yeah. And the challenge is with the large volumes, is figuring out how do you weed through that to get to the ones that are really important. But we had a client that submitted a comment about they were unhappy with something. Yeah. And I happened to be watching for my client that particular day and watching that survey come in. And I turned it over to someone internally. They called them within hours. And that customer was $1 million customer that was about to take their business to their competitor, but they gave them another chance. And the first thing they said was, I didn't think anyone would listen to this.
No.
So, I mean,
yeah. In the age of AI, why can't we just take all those comments, feed it into the machine and say, tell us what they just said?
Yeah.
Because AI will come up with a completely different interpretation of what they just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's real. I mean, there's not only 2 customer experience management platforms anymore. Like that used to be the case, right? I mean, you had to spend, and I'm not saying that's bad, but like it was almost price exclusive for a lot of organizations to be able to do some of the things we just talked about in terms of doing the automated sentiment on all these customer interactions and getting that treasure trove of data represented easily and going through all that unqualified or unstructured data, David, to be able to get the benefit of all of that. Because I mean, you kind of have to use an automated vehicle to do that in just about any organization. But there's so many incredible new players now. And David told me not to list any brand names, so I won't. But if you, I could give you 7, like just ping me. And if you're curious about this and you're looking for a lightweight, low cost VOC, like customer experience management, there's so many new players. Like,
okay, Nate, you can put it on Slack. That'll tell people they have to go to Slack.
It's an exciting time as a CX pro. Like we've been kind of like so nervous about the AI stuff and like, and for good reason, but like, this is one area that we should be celebrating because like we can do voice of customer so much better and so much easier than we've ever been able to do it before because of the new players that are here. It's awesome.
well, and do you dedicate time in your leadership meetings to talk about feedback other than just an NPS score? You know, that's one of my beefs with NPS is that they posted that score and that was a 2-second discussion and no one ever did anything with it. And it never trickled down to the employees on how they could change their behaviors to impact customer satisfaction. And so you've got to dedicate the time in an organization. I mean, every single leadership meeting, you ought to have a standing agenda item where you're given 10-15% of your meeting to talk about customer feedback.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael Tamer, isn't it can't measure it, can't manage it, something like that you just posted the other day?
Yeah, I mean, that's that's so true, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't close the loop, right? If I don't know the information and I don't have a way to actually close the loop afterwards and do something with it, nothing ever gets done. I put in the chat there. I don't know whether you folks have done it, but our clients are doing it and they love it. And that is when you're searching for customer words, you look for the pantheon of customer words. There's 4 of them. When you can get your customer to say, hire more Sallys, give Sally a raise, clone Sally, or probably the end all be all, I can hear the smile in Sally's voice. If one particular agent can get all 4 of those in a year, that's spectacular because that means they've connected with your client in a way that, and then the other one is, we measure all the time, just the number of times they use your frontline rep's name when they provide feedback. And all of a sudden you start, running word clouds and all of a sudden Jim comes up 35 times and you realize that they've connected with Jim. Jim's connected with them. It's customer words change behavior. They always have, always will.
It's fun. I like that, Michael. I would have previously scoffed at that idea of I can hear the smile in Sally's voice, but I got to work with a client 2 weeks ago in the Midwest in Minnesota. And like they have a whole thing, like you have a Midwest nice tone. And like it was unbelievable. Like they were the kindest, friendliest people on the phone. Like it transcended anything I'd ever heard. And you could absolutely hear the smile in their voice. So I know what you're talking about now. It's pretty awesome. So there's so much that we could, should, would do here. And this might be a little overwhelming for some folks. So, it's about, I mean, David made a good point, right? If you're collecting too much information to where it's usable and you're not able to close the loop, it's time to scale back and simplify and start collecting good, meaningful information that you can use. Then you earn the right to grow. Jeff, there's a comment there.
Oh, I can wait till you finish your thought.
That was the whole thought.
Okay. All right. No, I was just going to echo what some people are saying here. And for I've 30 years that I've been in this business, which it's hard for me to realize it's been that long. It's always been about measuring. And a lot of people in here are talking about that. And it truly comes down to, identifying those measures that apply to the particular business or businesses you're working with. And find always, you're always on 24/7, 365 measuring, looking to find that balance between what's going to continue to produce revenue and profits for your company and keep customer experience in check. And at the end of the day, when you're for-profit businesses, that's what you're trying to do at the end of the day. That's just kind of part of it. So you kind of have to accept it, and you also have to really keep open to the fact that no one score or measure is going to solve all of your needs. So like Jadine mentioned in the comments of, they use multiples. That's always been what I've been used to, is you've got to use multiple measures. You've got to define those measures. You've got to look at them, at least a couple times a year and say, are they still in check? And that's just the healthy way to do things and make sure that you don't get caught. So the second you think you got everything figured out is the second that you're in trouble. So
that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to illuminate more and more truth, and no one metric is going to do that. But also this idea of finding the correlations between a measurement that you can achieve and the meaningful outcomes that you're trying to steer towards. And for a lot of it, it's going to be that idea, that concept of loyalty, however that is captured for you. But let's use the example of employee engagement, because that's a little more narrow of a scope. I mean, we have multiple ways that we can measure the idea of employee engagement. The classic one would be the Gallup Q12. So in doing that, do we feel like we have a good representation? Like, are we able to maintain loyalty, engagement, and loyalty within our people using the data collected in the Gallup Q12? Another one would be TOMO, total motivation, coming from pride to perform. That idea of the things that make us love our jobs, that excitement and curiosity about the work, and the play and potential and purpose versus, the inertia and social pressure and economic stifling that can happen. You become a victim of your job. And so measuring those motivation factors, good and bad, how motivated are people intrinsically to work well? Taking that measurement of TOMO, okay, now let's look at this in correlation to what we're looking to achieve: lower attrition, higher engagement. So there's multiple ways to view it and to try to ultimately find, if we do these things. So for me, the magic thing in that area was pulse surveys, like weekly pulse surveys, 3 to 5 questions to the mobile device, gave us this incredible employee engagement representation that included 10 areas of overall employee life. And like that was the ticket for us. But you, like Jeff is saying, you got to navigate that for you based on your relationship with your employee, and then translating that concept. It's the same thought process. It's the same journey that you're doing with your customers.
And I think having the ability there to have your employees be your eyes and ears. I mean, too many executives think all the ideas and improvements have to come from their offices, and the employees get engaged and get fired up about their work when they're involved in solving problems and responding to customer feedback. And and sometimes executives work too hard. They need to let their employees do more of the work.
Matt Armbruster, you've been quiet on this. I have to encourage you to jump in, because I know you've got a lot of experience in this area as well. Thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a bunch, probably too many right now, but I think I would go back to kind of what David was saying earlier. I've had similar experiences where people have reached out asking for data and actions behind it, right? Nate, to your point, I won't mention the brands and throw them on blast here, but I think what I've experienced is you provide the feedback, you ask them for it, and it took them 6 months to reach out and say, hey, we value your feedback. You're willing to talk with us. And it's like, no, I'm not going to. I considered it. I'm like, hey, yeah, but then I'm like, why? I mean, why waste my time if if their effort is 6 months behind. I think from that perspective, and I think Lauren, he made this point, in any organization I've ever been in, with the augmentation of like Power BI, forget AI for right now, just looking at Power BI, Tableau, all the data dashboards that are being built. And I've done a lot of this in the past. My experience has been a lot of the executives, they're like, hey, build this, this, and this. Give me all the bells and whistles. Give me all the information. They have zero idea how to translate it. And I think we spent more time on meetings walking them through what the dashboard is, how to use it, what it meant, versus getting into the nitty gritty of understanding what it was that we were learning from the data on that potential side of it. So I guess my point on that one is less time building, developing, but really spending time with having them understand what it is they're looking for and why they're getting there versus the iterations that are causing all the work downstream, only to spend more time going back asking for explanations of the data and how this works and what it means.
Well said.
Hey, Nate, I'm just giving you a shout out here. We got about 12 minutes or so, 13 minutes left to the top of the hour. There's a lot of content in that chat box. Did that give you a chance to look at some of the things? And can you and Ryan pull forward some of that stuff? These are the people that are off camera. So the off camera people are in the chat box. The on camera people are on camera. What can I say?
There's some really smart stuff here. I've been trying to digest.
Yeah, I don't know who these people
JD
are.
and Shaver.
It's confusing to me.
So we also focus on the why when it comes to our metrics. Why are we capturing this? Why are we capturing that? What kind of meaningful business insights can we get from this data? Love that question. And I love that there's just questions here. This is what we should be doing, is just asking really good questions. How can we share it with other parts of our organization, sales, marketing, quality, legal, so that they can leverage the data for improvements in their space too? Yes, yes, yes. How often is VOC done in these little pockets where we do it like marketing does it, support does it themselves, product does it themselves? The whole process gets hijacked. And it's just perpetuating their own existing biases about what they want to be able to report about themselves to the business. How does that serve the customer? The VOC should be sacred. It should be done in a way that represents the reality of the customer. It is inconvenient and it requires the business to wrestle through it to understand it. If that's not happening, I love this comment from Jadine. And this is exactly the type of questions that we should be doing in that collaborative approach that we need to be taking. I love this. Thank you for adding that.
I would add the leadership moment here to this conversation. And we have a lot of leaders in CX, contact center space. And there's a converging source of frustration or a moment of inflection for our industry in that, you have this C-suite that has gone through a hell of a lot of change the last 3 years, just call it like it is. Then you have aggregated analytics coming head first into the industry with an amazing amount of information about what you're doing why. Then you have the AI monster. Then you have customer feedback. That's a lot for a leader to try to talk to their C-suite, talk to their employees about, and keep everybody informed, keep comfortable. And so taking a simplicity is the key in this approach that's aligned with your culture, your leadership team, but also recognize you're not going to be able to do all of this. And having just a little bit, picking off a little bit of those 4 pieces, the C-suite, the AI, the aggregated analytics, and the employee experience, and be able to have a focused total motivation score. Thank you. Lead it right into this of, hey, how do we evolve as a customer experience delivery model? They're the types of questions we're going to face as an industry operationally.
Yeah, no, well said, Ryan. I mean, there's too much here that can be done. So it is about picking the most relevant, intelligent path. And then I think to Dan's point, to David's point, to many people's point, we already have too much data. What matters more is the use of that. So I'll provide one very quick example of like this idea of bringing our metrics, bringing VOC to life. So I had a situation where we had a product that had a very negative internal sentiment. How did I know that? Because everybody was complaining about it. And customers are smart and they could sniff that out. They could feel the fact that we didn't believe in our own product. It's like, I gotta do something about this. So I did develop a customer journey map, but I knew that if I sent a customer journey map out and I had a customer health score associated with this product, If I emailed that out, guess where that would go? To the flipping trash can. So it was like, I've got to make this come to life. So it was an incident management system for environmental health and safety managers. It was like, I'm going to make these folks who are salespeople and support people and finance people and software developers. Today, you're an EHS manager. And so I set up in the break room a fake wall with paper, had the Kool-Aid man in a costume burst through the fake wall and break my arm in the break room. And this was captured on security footage. So there was an incident. So what do you do with an incident? You capture it in the incident management system. So that day when people came to work, they had the security footage that they had to watch. They had to log into the dang thing, probably for the first time, and log the incident like an EHS manager would. And when they did that, it was their ticket to come into a free catered lunch. And then we showed the customer journey map. And it was crazy how much more relevant everything became and how much impact that day had for months to come on the sentiment around that product. So it's kind of a goofy example, but like that's the challenge here. You got these metrics, you got this data. How do you make it come to life for your people? If anybody's got examples of that, would love to hear them.
Yeah, Nate, I'm just going to throw in there too. I think one of the things that really resonates with me based off of what everybody's been saying here is that the use of the data. And I think, as leaders in our operations, we tend to kind of think we need this huge system in order to make positive change. And really, it's the small stuff that we can do throughout all of the departments in our organization that can solve major challenges with the customer. And I think, we tend to kind of get sidelined because it's too costly or too big. But if we make smaller changes that have big impacts, we can really make a difference.
We earn the right. It grows over. There's a reason why getting that momentum and finding those quick wins is like number 3 in that John Coder leading change model. That's how you get trust. That's how you get momentum. And I think we need to do more of that as CX leaders. Sometimes we overcomplicate it and we get lost in our own science. Let's get back to the art of it. Let's get back to the relationship of it and find those opportunities to do just what you're talking about. To just earn a new ally. Just have a new mentality introduced to somebody, a new viewpoint of how they can see the customer. That one client that I got to work with a couple weeks ago that I mentioned, that they get to serve PE educators in a really cool way. And was talking to this one person and it came up of, I don't really know what this PE teacher is actually struggling with. It's like, boom. Okay, we're going to change that. Like we're going to make this customer that you get to serve in a really cool way, we're going to make them come to life for you. And that's one of my favorite parts of this job is doing exactly that.
Hey, Michael Tamer, I know you're off camera, so if you're not listening, that's fine. But I'm feeling like I've heard this before, maybe 30 years ago when the ACD reports came out, and all of a sudden they're starting to see some stuff or the screen. Is this sounding true to you? I mean, have we seen this before?
I first off, I guess that makes me the other dinosaur in the room, right? I mean, that's really your point, correct? Right?
Well, it is because your birthday's this month because mine was last week. So that was the whole point of bringing it up.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And welcome to Medicare.
It sure does seem that way, right? It seems like it was supposed to be a crappy job, 30, 40 years ago, and it's still a crappy job. And the reality is that the very worst employee that you have in your company is going to talk to more customers today than your most highfalutin marketing executive might talk to in a year. And, we've come up with this concept that we're going to take the least experienced, newest, lowest paid, maybe shortest tenure employee. We're gonna require them to create delight and complete a transaction in about half the time it takes to boil an egg with quality, millions and millions of times a year, over and over and over again, despite the monotony and all the other things. So it's always been a challenge. I think it's always going to be a challenge. I think that as new technology comes on, It started with the golden rule, right? We were supposed to be, you do unto others as you would do unto yourself, but we're so far past that now. Now it's the ungolden rule, right? Which is we need to do unto them exactly the way they want it to be done to them. And so you know what? I think it takes really bold and creative and smart leaders that want to embrace a problem that probably will never be fixed, but they pursue, a goal to be world class, to have people come work for them that for whatever their length of season is, they feel better. They feel better and smarter and enjoyed the people they work with, and and the time they were there was purposeful for them. And then you live to fight another day, because let's face it, tomorrow somebody's going to change something and you're going to have to react. So I think my long-winded answer is yes, it sure does sound the same, but we seem to have a lot more tools to play with now than we used to, for sure.
I heard a statistic, and it's not new anymore. It's actually going back to 2018 Cloud Security Alliance report. I would imagine it's worse. They said the average enterprise organization has 464 custom tools or applications, and like 38% of those are customer facing.
Wow.
So imagine how stupid it is to try to be an agent to navigate the flow of information inside of an organization when we have created so many data silos through a phenomenally incapable tool set. So, I mean, Michael, you're onto something significant here. I mean, we got to go way backwards before we can go forwards, and bring huge harmony and simplicity to the way that data flows through, and stop trying to solve problems by buying another piece of software. Like, solve the problem and use technology to make it even better and to cause information to flow through. But we don't do that. It's way easier to go buy something than to actually fix something.
I kind of feel like we should end on that note. Jillian, are you still on, or Maggie? Are we have some last minute things to cover?
Yeah, I'll just share my screen real fast. But thank you, Nate and Ryan, for this was an amazing discussion. I really I learned a lot, and I feel like it's so great to hear everybody's perspectives.